listen to these amazing sort of stories. They're bite-sized, so you can sort of do them over various things. To hear their beautiful voices bring these like characters to life, is fantastic.
This is Writers Mosaic in Conversation. Ishy Din and John Siddique talk about the beginning of Mosaic Monologues, a new series commissioned by Writers Mosaic.
Hey Ishy, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, John. How are you?
It's lovely to be with you. It's been wonderful working with you on this lovely new project for Mosaic, the Mosaic Monologues. But before we get started on that, I just wanted to know how things are going for you, because we've not had a catch up for a wee while. You've just had something on Sky Telly. I know you wrote it a little while back, but it was exciting seeing that coming out for you. And you're doing stuff with Royal Shakespeare Company, doing stuff with the Royal Court Theatre, and probably about 17 other things, I'm sure. So give us a little catch up.
It's a busy time. I think, in a writer's career, there's peaks and troughs. We all go through these peaks and troughs. So I'm at a sort of peak now where multiple projects are sort of trying to take form. The TV stuff was great, really exciting. And I've just delivered a draft to the Royal Shakespeare Company for my play for them, which is, as you'll know, one of the great pleasures of being a writer is having the chance to type the end and the relief of like, I've done it, I've managed to get it down.
And what's this? What's this play? What's this?
This is a big play that again has been a long time in its sort of in its birth. It's about the fall of the Mughal Empire. So big hefty subject, but hopefully I've come out with a structure that keeps us engaged, and we get to see the span of that 240 years between the last Mughal emperor and the sort of the takeover by the East India Company and subsequently the British Raj. So that's been a fascinating journey, John. The research and finding out the people involved and the characters involved in the journey those empires went on between decline and rise. That was fascinating. I'm now working on something like at completely the other end of the spectrum, which is about a darts team in a social club in Middlesbrough. We go from the Mughal Empire to the Albion Kite Club, and then the wonderful work I'm doing with the RLF, which is such a pleasure to do.
I can't believe you've kind of found the time to kind of work on this with us and to kind of be doing that as well, which is really incredible. So let's have a look at the Mosaic Monologues. I know you and I have worked on this together. You've been kind of like the director and I've been like the producer in the background. But outside of our relationship and working on this and our wonderful 6 writers who we'll talk about in a wee while, the idea starts earlier, doesn't it? So you were with Writers Mosaic on retreat in Italy.
Yeah, so I was on this retreat, which was fantastic. It was on the drive from Bologna Airport to where we were staying, and I was talking to Colin about how we get the sort of dramatic versions of stories that writers could really work with Writers Mosaic to get them down, and it felt that monologues would be the way forward. It was about a 2-hour drive, so we just riffed on that about, well, if there were monologues, what form would they take? How would we then present them to the world? And we just talk about audio, the importance of audio, how actually we consume content differently now, sort of sat around headphones on as we are today. I just felt that it would be a great medium for us to use in order to do that. And then the monologue is such a brilliant form. It can be incredibly powerful. There's a long history of some incredible pieces of writing that have took monologue form. By the end of the journey, the seed had been planted, and then by the end of the retreat, it was sort of like, oh well, actually we could pick 5-6 writers from up and down the country. We could ask them to write a 10-minute monologue, record it, and put it out on the website with the RLF, with Writers Mosaic. So it was really excited, but then it all went quiet for a while. And I'm sure Colin was working furiously in the background. We met and we had a lovely afternoon in Leeds, I remember, and sat and drank a cup of tea and sort of come up with a definitive plan and a real green light to go ahead and bring this project to life. It was incredibly exciting sort of process.
I came into the post as coordinator for the Royal Literary Fund and for WritersMosaic for the north of England. And so it was very natural that I just come and have a chat with you, And then Colin had spoken to me, our director, Colin Grant, spoken to me about the monologues idea. And I got really excited by it because, I'd loved things like Beckett and so on and those kind of short pieces that I'd kind of seen. I'd not really investigated the form that much. And then when you and I started talking about it, it just seemed, as you say, a great way to give writers from different genres and ways of working who are professional authors, but to let them kind of open out and experiment a little bit and to try something different. And to what I loved, or I discovered that I loved as we were doing this, is seeing the writers slowly come to understand that, because I refused all sound effects when I was producing. I said, no sound effects, no extra bits. The words have to carry everything. And to kind of see that click and then for that work to come through and kind of the power of what you can actually contain without adding bells and whistles on kind of brought back to me how powerful writing can be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, just being a part of that journey of honing in on these stories the writers came out was truly gratifying. Some people might think it's quite a simple form, but actually it's quite a complex way of telling a story, and it does take a particular skill set and form. And one of the things that I thought was incredibly refreshing from our that conversation we had in Leeds was you really saying we need to give our writers the freedom to tell the stories that they want to tell. Let them tell a story about anything at all. And in fact, we will love to hear stories that we haven't heard before or that aren't the usual fare of what people think when they think of global majority writers. And it was like, write as a Western, write as a sci-fi, write as a rom-com, write whatever you want. I think it really helped that we gave the writers that brief.
I found over the years that, a lot of writers of the global majority actually struggle with this because even though art is about freedom in a lot of ways, the freedom to create, in order to sell our work or to be published and so on, we have kind of internalized the colonial narrative. One of the reasons Mosaic even exists is to kind of create a space. What's that thing that James Baldwin says? The world that I want to live in won't exist until I make it. And that is written in my heart. Even when we're in resistance to that sort of colonized mindset, you're still writing for the colonized self. And exactly what you say, that we challenged our authors not to do the usual thing, but to write, to actually have the freedom to write what they want for once. Let's go through each one a little bit, actually, because we're talking about the range of what we've got. So Mara Menzies is an incredible storyteller. She spent half her time in Africa and her piece was actually recorded. I couldn't get her to come and be in the studio because she was away. And yet she's created this incredible piece about fear trying to dominate a woman's life. And her natural sort of storytelling abilities really sort of shone through with this one.
Yeah, it was fantastic. A slight step back. As the director, I had the glorious task of picking our first 6 writers. There were some names that you had that weren't on my radar. There was others that were on my radar, and I was like, oh, definitely. And it was a whole range of reasons why I picked. There was people whose work I admired. The wonderful Tamina, incredible poet and had a real voice. Nabila, who came from Bradford, and again from a community we don't really see. That was really exciting. And then you came with some names really exciting. artists, and Mara jumped out straight away. Her bio said something like Mara Menzies, storyteller. I was like, oh, that's my person. And then she sent in this piece, and it was from the viewpoint of fear. And I thought, how clever and exciting. So yeah, straight away it was like, oh yeah, this has got something. And so we worked together to sort of develop that. But it was a really exciting piece. Straight away, I was like, this is a really interesting way to get into this story about the patriarchy, about how women feel about themselves, and how fear is acting, and its manipulations, and its charm, and its evilness, and all of these sort of things. So they were all in this sort of first draft
Absolutely.
of this story.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Then we've got Connor Allen, who used to be the Children's Laureate for Wales. He's an actor as well. He produced this piece about a young man getting on a bus. So Connor came into the studio. We used the studio in Manchester. And the guy who was doing the engineering, when we got to the end of the piece, because Connor is so professional and he's used to being on stage so much or on TV or whatever, that it was literally a one-take job with just a couple of drop-ins. And the guy engineering just sat at the end looking at him going, what the have I just heard? And the guy listening to it on his headphones is just in shock at this piece, you know? But yeah, it's such a strange, spooky piece.
You know, when Connor sent his first draft in, I was hooked in. You know, by the end of page one, he has such a beautiful command of the language from a particular social economic class where this character is sort of based. But the way that character was talking and what it was, it just had me hooked. I just loved the poetic nature of his writing and what he was producing. And you're right, there's this incredible sort of twist and reveal that comes in the story, doesn't it? That suddenly you just like, oh wow, oh wow. And again, very similar to Mara, he comes at something that we're all sort of aware of, or that's in our consciousness, but it comes at it from such a sort of left field, different angle. And then when that thing's revealed, like, oh, actually, this is what's,
Yeah. Because it looks just like a lad gets on a bus. There's a girl he kind of who takes a shine in his eye. He kind of wants to go and talk to her. They're listening to a bit of hip hop together, and you think that that's it, you know?
Yeah.
And then whoosh.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't that always a sort of so exciting as a consumer of the story? You're like, wow, I didn't expect that. You know, that wasn't on my sort of audio bingo today to end up there. You know, yeah.
And Tamina's piece. Well, I mean, Tamina is just again just wonderful to work with in the studio. I found, and again, there's a funny story about Tamina. It's such a lovely piece. It's very ordinary in a way, and I love the ordinariness of it. It's a woman who has shelved her kind of creative life in order to kind of raise her family, and she's looking for a way back in. The thing is, Tamina has got one of the most beautiful speaking voices I have ever heard in my life, because she's got this sing-song nature in her voice, and there's a line in it, right, which goes, and we ended up turning it into a meme around the studio, which is the character goes, married to a man who's married to the gym, right?
Yeah.
And literally for the next sort of 2 or 3 days in the studio, every time we wanted to point to something, we were going like, married to a man who's married to the gym. Her ability to convey stuff with her voice is just incredible.
You know, I've known Tamina for many years, and she's such a powerful poet and spoken word artist. And that was a fascinating journey with Tamina as well, because she was so close. We did have a number of face-to-face meetings, and we sat, and actually the first one was just about the things that she was interested in talking about and the stories that she wanted to tell, and just, you know, landing on one of the many things that she was interested in talking about, but finding the one that she felt most passionate about. And she's a mother herself, so it felt like something that she had a real lived experience of. And then it was about lots of discussions about form and how to do it. But again, like you say, it was sort of set in a very ordinary world, but it resonates and it's so powerful and it's so sort of insightful. There's so many bits that resonate with you as you're sort of reading and listening to it. There's so many parts where you sort of say, "Oh, I completely get that. I completely get this, where this character is and how they're feeling and what they're going through."
And then Shahid's piece, I mean, you tell us about that. It's a hospital drama in the 50s. I just couldn't believe the range of what we were getting here. And of course, Shahid is a theatre writer himself, I think. And it was really interesting because he's deaf. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting working with him in the studio in that way. But maybe, talk about working with Shahid, because two theatre writers together, how did that go for
Yeah,
you?
so
Yeah.
Shy that always had been on my radar as a sort of fellow Northern scribe for many years. So when this opportunity come up, he'd written a play called 10 Nights, which was set in a mosque, a single character play, but incredibly powerful, and really dug into the journey of this character. So I'd always been really impressed with Shahid's writing, and I was thinking, I'd love to work with this guy. When the opportunity obviously came, he was one of the people that were already on my list, and then he sent in this piece that I was not expecting at all. Like you say, it's sort of set in a hospital sanitarium. I aren't quite sure how those sort of what the correct phrasing is of those places in the 50s. It sort of really challenges you to re-examine what current thought is, because the way he sort of set it up, it really does bring you into the present day and really provokes this thought about, well, okay, what is current thinking on that? What was it then and how has it changed, and where are we now and how's this going to change, and all of this sort of stuff. Really exciting. And then these really fantastic characters that inhabit this world that he's created. As the patients were coming in, they were, I'm sure you'll agree. You could straight away, you had this sort of mental image of who these characters were, and then a really beautiful sort of denouement to this story that he tells, and it's all so incredibly human.
What's revealed in this story it's just something I didn't know as well. And of course,
Yeah,
your mind can't help but turn towards One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the Ken
Yeah.
Kesey book. And I didn't realize that in America, this kind of carried on an awful lot longer. We won't give anything away. The end, again, the engineer, it was just great because I'm producing it, as it were. So I get to watch this guy kind of doing it and listening to it at the same time. And it kind of, his face kind of gave everything away. So that was really sort of fascinating to see. And then we've got two left. We've got Nabila, which is a very, very chatty piece, isn't it? It's kind of, it took a bit of work because she wrote such a big piece in the first place, and we had to kind of like narrow it down, and that took quite a lot to kind of find the thread that was through it. Maybe talk about that process of kind of bringing something large down to a more sort of focused sort of telling.
Firstly, I need to apologise to Nabila, because it was a bum steer from me, because when we were she was thinking of the first draft and saying how long, and I was saying, don't worry about it, just tell me the story, we'll figure that out as we go along. There was when you and Colin read them and said, well, look, the word counts on these are sort of huge and stuff like that. And I knew there was lots of bits in there that were really important to Nabila to talk about, but it was sort of, look, again, it's sort of the professionalism of these guys is there is a remit and there is a sort of, it has to unfold over a certain time as a recording, as something people are going to experience and stuff like that. And she was incredibly professional about that and killed some of her babies in order to bring that down and hone it down. But I think it benefits from that. And that was about discussing, what are the important bits? What bits do we return? What are we trying to say with this and this? And again, the thing about Nabila's piece is we're from similar communities. It really resonated with me. I recognized so much of that was going on in there. We got it down to this sort of this very lean piece of storytelling, and it's still full, it's packed, and it's very chatty, and it's hopefully the tension of this, what this character is going through, and that conundrum she has to solve of who to be and where to be that person, and stuff like that. And it wasn't just how do you operate as a person of color in a white world. It was how do you operate as a woman in a patriarchy, and about operating within our own worlds. And a wonderfully harassed character. I was thinking, I would love to be sat at that table and eat that food that's being prepared by this incredibly harassed character. It sounded so sort of delicious as well. So it was good. I think a number of the writers, these were their first sort of attempt at writing monologues. So
Yeah,
to see them,
everybody's expert in their own field. It was so nice to kind of take them into a new realm, you know, because we don't get that chance very often. We get to you know, you get to kind of plow your field, don't you, as it were, and you get used to doing
absolutely.
that. So it's really good to be able to kind of stretch out and try something a bit different.
Once everybody had sort of understood the form, it just released them. You know, I think I used to sort of, I said to all the writers, just tell me a story. And they were like, but how? I said, imagine I'm sat in front of you and just like, you know what happened to me? And then just start writing
Yeah,
and tell it like that, you know.
yeah.
And
And then
find that moment of that cathartic moment for your character within the telling of the story. I think that's really, really important in this form, that actually it's not just an anecdote, you know, what happened to me, but actually we're with this character as they realize something profound about their lives or what they're living. And I think each of the stories really, really nailed that.
that leads very nicely into kind of Testament's piece, the final, our sixth piece, as it were, which is kind of a guy leaving the country because the world, you know, this country has gone to pot. Basically, that's the implication. And then he has this kind of Blakean encounter. We won't say too much, as it were, but it was really, really interesting to kind of almost see, like, because everybody thinks of Blake as a classic now, but actually Blake's work was quite forgotten for a long time, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then kind of surfaced in the last kind of 120 years or so, and became what we know of it today. You know, this range from fear to hospitals to home life to almost like a kind of mythic unfolding in a very ordinary, strange space. Because airports are weird places, so much
Yeah.
emotion and stuff going on. It's just that, you know, we get to live six lives here, you know, as readers, as listeners. Testaments, I found such an incredible other aspect to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know, when we were looking for writers, I got in contact with a few friends as well. You know, about, oh, do you know anybody interesting that I should sort of I should check out and stuff. And Testament's name came up from a couple of different people that said, oh, there's this guy in Yorkshire called Testament that has, and I, you know, for selfish reasons, I always thought he's a poet and a writer and he's a rapper as well. And I was like, oh, I'd love to give somebody who works in that medium like a blank canvas and say, paint me something. And in my conversation straight away from the first conversation I had with Testament, he was like, I've been looking into Blake and I'm fascinated by it, and I'm sort of been, you know, examining different works of his and stuff like this. So he was very much in that headspace as we went into the project, and it was he'd always wanted to do something that was Blakean. So he was sort of, can I do this? I said, you can do whatever you want, mate. If that's what you want to write about, go for it. And yeah, he come back with this really fascinating, obviously, but there was this melancholy and sadness about it. because of the situation this person's in and the beautiful way, the poetic nature of Testament's writing, that he really gives you a sense of profound sadness of what this young man is going through and how he's ended up where he has ended up, and then this encounter that he has in an airport lounge. Just that, like that's an elevator pitch for the first act of a movie. An encounter in an airport lounge, isn't it?
And the last thing you expect is that somebody is actually going to not just kind of regurgitate a Blakean myth, but actually add to it in the 21st century and take that work forward. Is the last thing I expected while we were doing this. I really feel, because the BBC is doing a lot less audio drama, they've made a decision to kind of reduce their audio drama output and so on, and the short stories and things like that. And having just worked on this with you, and we're looking at a year 2 maybe and a year 3 of this, and maybe even taking some of this into theatre and staging it and so on when we get a few more under our belt. I really think the BBC have missed a trick here, because, as I say, we got to meet 6 different lives, we get to meet 6 new authors, we get to sort of help the writers develop, and 6 new worlds created.
Absolutely, John. That is the most sort of gratifying part of it all. And I think the form is brilliant, because we do spend so much time now with our headphones on and our headphones in as well. These stories are perfect for sort of pop your headphones, walk the dog, go for a walk, listen to these amazing sort of stories. They're bite-sized, so you can sort of do them over various things. To hear their beautiful voices bring these characters to life, is fantastic. And I'm really excited about the next cohort of writers that get a chance to write on the Mosaic Monologues. It's such a fantastic project. And just to sort of add that, kudos to you guys for seeing it through. We spend lots of time talking about things that unfortunately never materialize. To work with people who are about action and about let's get this done, and and then forging ahead and actually realizing those conversations and those aspirations has been really refreshing in an industry where everything takes bloody ever, as we all sort of know. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, to be working with writers. It's been a fantastic experience. I can't wait for the next one.
Well, I'm just so grateful that, given what you do, Shakespeare Company, Royal Court Theatre, Mughal Empire, and all of that, that that you're happy to work with us. I find you're just such a lovely man to work with, that we can just riff and kind of get these things done. And we have seen it through. That is an absolute, you start a project and you think there's no way we're going to pull this off, and who are we to be doing this? And, but let's have a go anyway. And then to kind of kick in the professionalism that we naturally carry, each of us, and to make this commitment, to make this journey. And it's taken over a year to kind of do this. And it's such a small team. And yet here we are, they'll be on their way, and we're talking about year 2 already, as if it was like a thing that always existed. Anyway, let's leave it there for now, Ishy. Please keep us in touch about the Mughal play.
I will do.
I can't wait to come and see that, and maybe come on and talk to us about it as well. Maybe we can meet up and do a conversation with you about that when it's about to hit. That'd be really wonderful. Thank you for holding this together. I want to thank each of our writers who's worked with us. Colin, for having that conversation with you in the first place. The sort of the trust in you both to kind of hand it to me and say, right, here's this stuff, now get it down. And then our writers kind of turning up and making it so. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Ishy, so much.
And thank you guys, and thank you, Colin, for the opportunity. It's widened my practice as well. I got to do something that I don't normally do. It's given me a real feel for that and a real desire to do more. So
more soon.
Thank you guys.
More soon, for sure.
More soon. Watch this space.
Watch this space. Thanks, Ishy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ishy Din and John Siddique were talking about the beginning of a new series, Mosaic Monologues. To hear more writers, go to writersmosaic.org.uk.